of the San Antonio Native Prairie Association, and I'm happy to say that our speaker tonight is Patsy Inglet from the Antonio Audubon Society. She's a native Texan, originally from my neck of the woods, from the Houston area, although she lived and worked for 25 years overseas as a teacher with her engineer husband, Tom. They retired to the San Antonio area in 1999 and started with their new career as professional volunteers. Birds started as a volunteer interest, but have now become a passion and a focus of Patsy's educational and conservation efforts and recreational activities and trips. She and Tom have traveled to every continent, that includes Antarctica, I guess. Yes, wow. To see as many birds as possible. Banded birds in the field, monitored birds in the nest, and taught many children and adults the basics of birding. And as the current president of Bexar Audubon Society, Patsy supports National Audubon Society initiatives within the 9-county area that Bexar Audubon serves, working to ensure that the birds we enjoy today will be here forever. Connecting people of all ages with nature via birds and helping to conserve our natural legacy have become top priorities in Patsy's life. And sparrows, little brown birds, are one of her favorite groups of Texas birds. So a very, very big welcome to you tonight. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and put my screen up so that you can see us. And somebody give me a high sign if you can see the screen, please. Good. Well, I am Patsy Inglet, and this is my buddy in crime. This is Tom, handsome dude up there. And we are so glad to be here because you are prairie people, and prairie people love sparrows, right? As we all know, prairies are in danger. That's our clock going off. Tom's going to go shut it up. Got to turn it off. And so prairies and all other ecosystems are really wonderful places to watch birds. All ecosystems have different birds. And tonight we're going to take about 50 minutes or so, and depending on how many questions there are, we'll be happy to answer those at the end. We're going to give you kind of a lightning overview of the birding basics. So if we have some tools and tips and techniques, we would like people who are interested in prairies to sharpen their birding skills. And we have an ulterior motive for that, because we want to put birding to work for conservation of the prairies. And it's an important tool for that. And we're going to be doing some work out at the Kirchoff Prairie Restoration on May 8th, a survey, and we're hoping that some of the people here will be interested in coming out and learning more about that. So Bexar Audubon Society, we're going to have 8 or 9 people from our society who are trained birders and love to do it, and they're going to come and help. And then people who are interested in the prairie and live around there or would like to come out and learn more, we welcome you if we have the rooms on the team. Now, the question is, why birds? It's a good question, and there's lots of answers to that. Now, bird, as you know or may not know, is a noun. It means anything with feathers, and it's also a verb. It's something we do. We are going birding. We're going to bird this property. This has become a new verb in the English language. Now, why bird and why birds? There's a lot of answers to that question. I mean, come on, birds are just fascinating creatures, and they're beautiful, and they sing, and they do all these wonderful things. Birding is wonderful for people. And a lot of the reasons are very personal for each individual. But I want to highlight the ones in red here at the bottom. It's good for your health. It gets you out physically. You're out walking, you're out exercising, maybe not vigorously, but maybe sustained. You're using your mental, keep you sharp, and it connects you to something bigger than yourself. Nature, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to feel that connectedness. It also expands our perception and enjoyment of nature. If you take a walk with a trained birder, It's not the same as taking a walk with a lot of other people, because they're alive. They're looking for something around them all the time. And it really broadens our appreciation of what's out there. But what I want to really highlight this tonight is birding contributes to conservation. And it does a lot, because we found that when birds decline, we better look at what's happening in the environment. When birds are flourishing and thriving, then we know that what's happening in the environment is going in the right direction. And this is what we really want to talk about. And we'll notice that we're going to be switching off. Hopefully we won't bump into each other. And Tom will do some parts of this program and I'll do some parts of it. Okay, but we do have the warning label on the package here. Birding can become addictive. We have certainly come to that, but it is a healthy one and it is a good one. And we don't apologize for infecting anyone with the birding fever. So it's good for you. Now, here's the 3 things we're going to talk about tonight. How to prepare before you go out birding, or before you look out your window at birds, because you don't have to go anywhere to bird. You can just look out your window. We want to show you a systematic ID method that you can use. It's based on the scientific principles, so that you can do it anywhere in the prairie or any other ecosystem, whatever continent you're on. You use the same principles. And then we're going to talk about putting our birding to work. It not only helps you practice your skills, but you also learn from other birders and you learn from the direct experience with the birds. Now, when we talked about preparing before you go, I used to be a teacher. Well, I guess I still am, but I used to get paid for it. And for 30 some odd years, and I've always knew that start with what you already know. Try to hook on to something you already know. Well, you people are easy because you are already hooked into nature. And everybody knows a bird. Some people know lots and some people know a few, but everybody has a bird story. Okay, now here's a bird that everybody around this area, San Antonio and east of the Rockies, has seen. It's a northern cardinal. Northern because it comes to North America. It has cousins, other species that live in other parts of our hemisphere, but this is our northern cardinal. It's a beautiful bird, bright red. But let me show you about birding perception. I'm going to turn that off. It's supposed to be black. Okay, now ask yourself these questions. What color is a cardinal's eye? Does it have any other colors besides that bright red that it was named for? Does it have any other features that are readily noticeable? What is the shape of its beak? What's the color of its beak? What are the color of its legs? What's the proportion of the tail to the rest of the body? Now, if you're going, that's perfect.
It's a cardinal.
It's a cardinal. You know that. But now, let me put him back up. Everybody's looking at his eyeball, right? And everybody knows now you are using birding eyeballs now. This is birding perception. You're going to notice little details that you haven't ever noticed before. He's got a black eye, a black mask. The black eye is inside the mask, right? He's got a triangular, very stout beak, and it's bright orange. He's got a crazy mohawk crest, and his tail, you can't see it very well in this picture. The tail is about the same length as the rest of the body. The legs are kind of gray pink. All right, you're never going to look at a cardinal in the same way ever again. I promise. Now, put up another bird. The basis of scientific reasoning is compare and contrast. Compare means how are they the same, and contrast means how are they different. So we compare these birds. We know this bird, northern cardinal, and we have this other bird. We look at them. How are they alike? They both have the same bill, right? They both have dark around the bill. They both have a crest. They have the same body shape, same size, and all that. How are they different? Just the body color, right? They're so much alike that they're the same species. One's the boy and one's the girl. Okay, so by that we found out, because a lot of people don't even know this is a female cardinal. They think it's something else, you know. So this is what we do. The same principle. We put up another bird here, and this is a blue jay. Okay, it's a city bird mostly, and we can tell mainly by looking at the beak. It doesn't eat the same thing in the same way as a cardinal. So it's got more different than it has the same. the color, obviously. It does have a little crest, but the markings and everything are quite different. We put them side by side and we see they're not all that similar. And birds have families. They're like cousins, like you and I do. And the cardinal has a whole family of birds that are very similar to it. The blue jays have the jay family, and the cardinals have what they call the grosbeaks, which means big beak, things with big beaks. Okay, now, so what I'm suggesting to you, that if the birds that you know from your yard, from your property, make a list, look them up, get a picture. You can get a book or you can get an application. We'll talk about those in a minute. Make a list of the birds. These are just 16 that I picked out. And really study them. Use your birding eyeballs, your perception, listen to their calls. You can do that online or you can do it on an app. And really get to know, these are going to be your usual suspects that you really know. Then you have something come into your yard you don't know, you use this as your reference set. This is your comparison set, okay? Now here's a bird that you may or may not have ever seen. And so we think now, which of the birds we've seen just now is it most like? Well, it kind of looks like a cardinal, doesn't it? Yeah, could be a cousin of the cardinal. It's got a crest, it's got a stout beak, it's got the mask, just a different color. It's got the same general shape and size. So what do? I cheat. I go to a book, and we'll talk about those in a little bit, and I look up the cardinal family. And this is a book we'll recommend to you to start with. It's the Kaufman Field Guide. Here we see a group of birds called grosbeaks. And the cardinal's on the top, male and with his crest up and down, they can do that. Female with hers up and down. And then we have junior cardinal here. He's got a black beak when they first come out of the egg and a really ragged looking bad hair day crest, right? So all the birds on this page and perhaps the following page are in that family. So do we see the bird we're looking for? The one that is an unknown bird? There it is. That's one of the easiest IDs you can make. Go to the page with the birds you know and you find the birds you don't know. It's called a pyrrholoxia or a pyrrholoxia. Either way is pronounced correctly. So it's in the same family as the cardinal. Okay.
Not all that easy, but you start there.
We'll start easy. Okay. Then if you don't have that kind of good fortune, we'll give you the ID steps to take to find out a bird that is not quite that easy to identify. Now, the other thing you want to do before you go is look at a list of birds that have been seen where you're going to go. Now, on the Kirchoff Prairie, I have sent out a list of all the birds that have been seen there in May. And so everybody who's coming out there is studying that list, making sure they know this and know the calls and all that kind of stuff. And we can do that by getting a list from the place, or we can pull it off the internet from eBird, which we'll talk about later. So you're prepared, your mind's prepared, your eyes are prepared. Then you want to equip yourself with essential birding tools, and Tom's going to talk to you about that. He's the tool guy. Okay.
Yeah, there's not all that many. Most of it is just us getting familiar with the subject matter. So first thing, of course, I mean, most people, the first thing they're going to do if they see some birds and they're interested in learning a little bit more and learning the name, they're going to get a book. We've got a picture here with 4 different field guides. There are a number of field guides that are all quite good. The good ones have a lot in common, but we're showing Kaufman, which is the one Patsy already mentioned, we suggest as the first one. Then there's National Geographic, there's Sibley, there's Peterson, there are others. But all of them have a lot of things in common. They typically will have, they'll have pictures of the birds and multiple pictures like male, female, if they're different. Sometimes if there's some flight that you need to see something that would help you identify, that'll be there. And then they have some written verbiage, very concise. And then they'll have a map showing the distribution where the bird can be found. Okay. And some books like the National Geographic, they have paintings where the artists are able to accentuate the things that they want to, and then they'll have these little marks showing and commenting, these are things that, these little marks here are the things you want to look at to identify the bird. This is the Kaufman guide of a similar page, which Patsy just showed already. the same general layout, right? Kaufman uses enhanced digital photos. He actually uses photos. So there, you really got two ways to go, and it doesn't matter which one you go for. There are also apps to help you. There are more. The slide accommodated 3. So there are more, and we can talk to you about them if you want to know about them. The top one is by Audubon, the Audubon Bird Guide. It's free. It's an app from the App Store, or whatever they call it, depending whether you have an Apple or a Android. iBird Pro was one of the earliest apps, and it has continued to get better and better, and it costs. Sibley Guide is very good. It costs. There are others. There are more free ones. There are more that cost. Okay, we're just trying to expose you to the idea. Then, of course, people who are interested in birds usually need something to cause them to get closer without running them off, which means something to magnify them. Binoculars. Binoculars come in all shapes, sizes, and even colors. I mean, this is not a particularly handy set here. You need a tripod to hold it. These are too little to be of any real use. But when you decide to find some binoculars, you know that they come in basically 2 styles. They come in a straight through style, which is called a roof prism. And then they come in this offset style, which is the Poro prism. And in either case, there's a lot going on inside, lots of lenses, prisms, what have you, a lot of coatings, different things. These are all the things that make them cost a lot. The more you get, the more they cost. So, and then they offset ones, they do it with prisms to get you out the deal. The big deal to remember though, for birding, you want a binocular that is full size. You don't want these little guys like you see people with, like you go to the opera with, or you don't want something heavy. You want something full size. And what you want to do in all of them, it doesn't matter whether the big ones or little ones, full size or otherwise, there will be 2 numbers on them, like 7 by 35, 8 by 42, 10 by 50. What these numbers are, the first number is the magnification. That's how much closer it seems. The second number is the diameter of the light gathering the objective lens on the binocular. It's the big end, typically. Although we have little kids, sometimes they've got them backwards, but things look far away. So here's the key. When you divide the first one, the power, into the diameter, you want the quotient to be 5, nominally 5, about 5. Because what that number defines is the diameter of the light shaft coming out of the lens to your eye. And the pupil of an eye is nominally 5 millimeters. So 35 millimeters divided by 7 is 5 millimeters. That's what you like, okay? And we've got a handout if anybody needs that for that subject.
And we'll show you how to set them later.
Yeah, we'll go over binoculars quickly. We'll do like a 5-minute deal of how to set them for your face, your eyes. So now, once you've got your book and your binoculars, you definitely, even before you've got it, you need a systematic method to ID the bird that you see that you're wondering about. And we came up with a little tricky deal here, memory jogger, if you will. We started this with our young birders. And what it is we say you play chess backwards. So what a birder is like a detective, is like a scientist. They're trying to gain clues to conclude what the bird is, what the name of the bird is. So how many do you want? You want all you can get, right? More clues, the better. And you have to use them all. You got to be democratic. You can't throw one out because it didn't work for the answer you got. You'll get caught at that. So we say play chess backwards. Why do we say chess backwards? Well, because chess starts with C, which we're calling color, and then we're very biased toward color. I saw a yellow bird. What was it? Where was it yellow? Well, mostly. That doesn't tell you anything, right? So we start with S for sound, meaning if you hear something. So sound is the first S in chess backwards. So you look. Even if you don't see it, you know where to look. So that sound is the sound of a painted bunting. And if you study, you can identify the birds by the sounds. But even if you don't know the sound, then you know what direction to look. So also, sound is very important in some species. It's real important. There are some groups of birds that you need to hear them sing almost to be sure you've got the ID right. A good example is Carolina wren and Buick's wren, which we all probably have on our back porch. We certainly have both of them here in our house. And the birds look quite similar. They got that big eyebrow, the curved bill, a little squatty body, cocktail with bars on the wings and the tails, what have you, that eyebrow. But listen to the call difference. There is no confusion about the call. The first one is the Carolina wren, right? And this is the Buick wren. Not confused, right? Easy. So a lot of times you use the sound to differentiate one species from the other. The next thing on the list for chess, working backwards, is S for silhouette, meaning all birds are blackbirds, right? Not so. These are just some plywood models that we made. And what they are is to illustrate how much you can learn from the silhouette. The silhouette is something that often doesn't get the credit that it needs, because look at these. What all can you tell from just the shape, the silhouette? Well, this one has no brain. This one has a golf ball for a head. This one sits parallel and props itself up with its tail. This one cocks its tail up and its wings down, sits kind of horizontally. This one has a mohawk and a big triangle beak and a medium length tail. This one has a big, great fluffy looking tail, long as its body. This one has a little nubby square tail,
One of them has a fork.
little body. This one has a pitchfork on the end of his tail. You know, all these things, you can tell worlds of things about the birds. And the thing I haven't mentioned was beak. And the thing about the beak is that's probably the biggest factor that drives you toward the family, which the books, the good bird books, which I didn't mention, I should have, but they're organized taxonomically. They're organized by family. And so they are grouped, and the beak is the biggest thing that will drive you in that direction. There's more to it than that, but you can see that there's a lot you can get from the silhouette. And also silhouette, you can use it to help judge size, but if you're going to judge size, you need a standard. And so what we've chosen here in this layout is, we know what a house sparrow is. That's that little chirper that's stuffing the straw in HEB letters. We know what a robin, about the size of a robin is.
Medium.
Like a medium size. And then we know a crow is a pretty big bird. I mean, this is a big bird. So if the bird you're seeing is about house sparrow size, then you know that, like a goldfinch. Grosbeak, maybe about like a robin, or maybe it's in between. So here, a cedar waxwing is not as small as a sparrow, but not near as big and fat as a robin. So you'd say, okay, he's about that size. You can go in the book and look at the write-up on the one that you know and confirm about the size of what you're looking for. Blue jay is between the robin and the crow. Silhouette also with relative size. Again, we're talking relative size. In this top picture, we're talking about relative size, one animal to the other, the actual ones. This is a beach, obviously not Galveston because it looks like snow, but if you knew that this was a turnstone, a ruddy turnstone, and you don't know about what the size of a ruddy turnstone is, then you would know this bird here is a lot bigger. It's about 3 times as big. It's actually a willet. And then in the same place, you could see this sanderling. This is the one that chases the waves. He's about the same size as the sanderling, as the turnstone, but just a little bit smaller. You can also use the silhouette. You can also use a silhouette of and compare parts of the bird's body. I talked about the tail being the length of the body and what have you. Here we're comparing the bill length to the depth of the head. This is a hairy woodpecker. This is the downy woodpecker. Where they occur together, even their body patterns are very similar. And this is a much smaller bird, but the thing that you can find is his beak is way shorter relative to his head than a hairy woodpecker. They have a normal looking beak. This one looks like a nub beak. Here's a picture comparing shapes of raptors. I don't expect you to learn what all the raptors are, but there are people that watch raptors in migration and they're looking at black specks in the sky and you think, can they really tell anything? Well, you can if you study long enough. Okay, so look, you would not confuse this shape with this shape, or this shape with this shape, right? They're different. So this one's got wings like an M. These are straight and flat and hard. These got a little deal here. These are pointy with a long tail. The point is, there are differences. And I'm not telling you that this is all real quick and dirty and easy. You got to study it, but there are ways. And you can use these silhouettes of the bird to identify them. Because many times you see raptors, they're up in the sky, they're backlit. They are basically a silhouette. Also, you can determine posture with nothing more than a silhouette. You know, you don't need to be told that this is a duck, right? And look at that posture. Just kind of horizontal, kind of got a bit of a full diaper look, and that big old head sticking out in that big bill. This here, was he? Woodpecker, he's parallel. His posture is on the pole. This is a barn swallow. This over here is a plover. He's got long legs. He's more or less like a killdeer. He's more or less a fat chest and kind of leaning over. We got pigeons and doves. They tend to sit up, you know, hummingbirds. So we've got all kinds of things that we can look at. Now, Patsy's going to talk a little bit about the groups.
Okay, now, all this is about is getting the birds to the family, okay? And if you have a 400-page book, you only want 2 or 3 pages or 4 pages or 5 pages you have to look at. There are 10,700 different species of birds on the planet Earth, from an ostrich all the way down to the smallest one that's a little bee hummingbird. But they all have feathers and they all have characteristics that we can divide them into groups to make it easier. Now, in the Kaufman Guide, in the beginning of it, maybe you don't know all these words and names and all that kind of stuff. But if you know generally what family it's in or what the bird looks like in general, he puts them in a group. Here's waterfowl and swimming birds. Here's birds of prey. And he puts some color behind it. And on the edge of the pages, he puts that color so you go right to that part of the book. It's really very helpful. Now, everybody, like Tom says, you know a ducky thing when you see it. Most people know a hawky thing when they see it. We know more of these than we give ourselves credit for, okay? People can recognize an owl way off, and they're pretty easy. Then we have the wading birds, long legs, long neck, and usually a long beak to match, okay? Then hummingbirds, that's a very common group that people can recognize, and the woodpeckers and so forth. So those bigger birds tend to be a little bit easier. When you get down into the little birds that come to our backyard, the perching birds, the songbirds, it's a little bit more detailed. You have to kind of study it a little bit, but it's not any more, it's the same principle. And he continues with the different colors and so forth. And do these birds all look alike? No, they don't. But it takes a little study maybe to differentiate them. This is the flycatcher group. They sit up, they fly out, they catch a bug, they go back and sit and eat it. We have a vermilion, an eastern phoebe, and a scissortail flycatcher. Thrashers stay in the bush and make lots of noise. They have curved beaks like that. You've probably seen some of these out in the prairie. And then, of course, our mockingbird is famous for being able to do all the different calls. The jay family, we saw the blue jay. Here's the green jay cousin. And they have characteristics that put them in the same group of birds. Crows and ravens, the big blackbirds that are all over the place. Out in the western part of the United States, we have more ravens than crows, but they kind of look the same from a distance. Feeder fanatics, they come and get a seed and chip them open. The chickadees have a round head and the titmice have the little crest. They're cousins. They're in the same family. The wrens, we've already showed you, a little round body, a long tail, and sometimes a fairly long beak. Warblers and vireos stay up in the tree, harder to see. One of them has a thicker beak than the other, but they're two different families of birds. The blackbirds, lots of these are prairie birds, like the meadowlarks, the red-winged blackbirds. They're very threatened. Meadowlarks have declined quite a bit. And they are the ones that they have that, they're not all black, obviously, there they are. Orioles are in the blackbird family, but there are some that are all black, like the grackles. And this is a very important group of prairie birds. And the sparrows, in the wintertime, the prairie is Sparrow City. And we have a few like this lark sparrow that are here all year, but we have a lot of them in the winter. Let me just put that back up, because sparrow color palette is brown and white or cream and black and streaky. Somewhere on their body is streaky. If they have color like red or yellow, then they're a finch. They both eat seeds. They both have that little triangle beak. So we can find them in the book. Here's our grosbeaks, the tanagers, the cardinals, the dickcissels, and the buntings, like the painted bunting. These are all in the same family. They're all in the same part of the book. And before you know it, you're going to be able to look at this picture and you're going to be able to pick out, oh goodness, look, there's a wren over there, and there's a dove up there, and oh, there's a quail, and there's an owl in the tree, and there's a kingfisher. And it doesn't take much study, and you'll be going right to that part of the book where you need to be. Now, once you get into your book in the right place, you need to know where they're living to make sure you're at the right kinds of birds, okay?
And this, I would recommend you pay attention to this, because we didn't when we started and paid the price. But the E in chess is for ecoregion, which means the distribution. Where is the bird at what time of year? And so it tells you where you would logically go look for it. And the best way to spell ecoregion is M-A-P, map. Because in the book, what happens is over on the left in this one, you got a map, and it's got some colored on it, and the codes in different books may be a little different, but they have a legend in the front of the book to tell you. In this book, red is for summer, blue is for winter, and purple is a mix, and it's all year long. So if I'm looking for a cardinal, I should not be looking very far west of here, because he occurs in the east and southeast US only. If you go to Oregon and you see one, you get a special mark, because this guy has really gotten lost. But you do see them sometimes. So distribution is the ecoregion, and that's a big region. So here's another example. If you wanted to see a golden-fronted woodpecker and you lived anywhere in the States, you're going to come give some money to Texas, because this is the only place it exists, and it's all year long. And this one all year round is green. So here he is. If I live in San Antonio and I want to see a northern flicker, I probably shouldn't spend a lot of time in July and August looking for him, because he's only here in the winter. Okay, so the maps are important. Like I say, we didn't use them a lot when we started, so we saw a lot more rare birds, or thought we did. Others corrected us, of course. Okay, so the next thing, so you got this big broad brush on the map. The next thing is, what part of that map are you looking for? What habitat does the bird occur in? And that occurs in the written portion of the field guide. It tells you what kind of place you would look for. I've got some pictures here of habitats. These are all around San Antonio. This is at Mitchell Lake, just south of downtown San Antonio. This is Bird Pond, which is a small, relatively shallow pond when it has water. And it would have things like this least grebe. These big pelicans might show up here, but you're not going to see a bunch. They're very seldom. Where they go is in the Mitchell Lake, which is about 600 acres and deep, because that's that's the habitat they prefer. Then we have the golden cheek warbler. His habitat is the oak juniper woodland of central hill country. Every golden cheek warbler is a native Texan. The only place in the world that this bird is an endangered species, by the way, the only place that it is hatched is in central Texas, in that habitat. It has that very specific habitat. It's not a place that you would expect to see a roadrunner unless it was on the edge of it, right? Because a roadrunner likes more open, nasty looking stuff, right? I mean, this is dry country, brush country. That's what they like. And highways, of course, as shown in this picture. Then you like prairie. This is a recovered. This is at Cibolo Nature Center, both pictures. This is a tall grass prairie at Cibolo Nature Centers. It's about 50 or 60 acres of it that they recovered. It's a beautiful area. And there you would find sparrows in the winter, typically. There are a few. And along here, you see this, all these cypress trees back here? That's this riparian area that we're showing at the bottom. You're not going to find these sparrows sitting down here beside the stream unless they're taking a bath. But you would find a green kingfisher, which you are never going to find out there in that field. So the habitats are another key. Not only habitats, but where if they like a tree, you begin to learn where they are in the tree. Some birds like the top, some like the bottom, some like under the tree, some like in the middle, whatever, okay? Next thing, color patterns.
All right. Now, we're back to the part where we all like it anyway, color, okay? So if you're artistic at any way, what you're doing when you're looking at a bird is you're painting a picture in your mind, and then you're going to the book to find something that looks like it, okay? So here we have, as Tom mentioned before, these little marks. They pay attention to that. That's a red mask. This is an orange beak. This is a big white slash on the wing. Pay attention, because those are important things to look for, okay? So it's color patterns and all the other things that we've talked about. Now, when you look at birds, sometimes you don't get enough time to look at them, right? You want to go and get as much information as you can in the time that you have to look. And sometimes you have to learn some new words that you haven't had before when they describe things in the book. So you got to learn a little bit more about the bod of a bird. You know, like some parts are like the breast and the sides and the belly, but then there's some things like the lores and the crown and the supercilium or whatever. There's some terms that we don't use in everyday speech. Well, you can study this, but if you read it, that's the time to go to the book and learn a new word. What part of the bird are we talking about? And that gives you an idea of where these marks are. When the bird flies, as Tom has already mentioned, sometimes you can see patches in the wing. Like, think of a mockingbird. When they fly, they have big white patches in the wing and all white on the tail. You don't see that when they're sitting still. So you have to kind of know how the bird is put together, you know, the tail feathers and the wing feathers and so forth. Now, I'm going to go ahead. The play is behavior, okay? And how does a bird act? Well, that brings us back to the first thing. They sing, they make sounds. That's one thing that they do. They fly different ways. This is a crow. This is a pigeon. Some birds, a raven. Sorry, raven, not a crow, it's a raven. It's a raven because it has a tail like this. A crow has a rounded tail, okay? And some of them go up and down as they fly. Some birds walk, some birds hop. Some birds forage on the ground, some birds forage other places. So these are behaviors, and sometimes they can be very helpful. This little bird, the phoebe, it's a flycatcher, remember? And it flies out, it comes back to the perch to eat, and when it does, it wags its tail. You can see it from a mile off without binoculars, and you know you're looking at a phoebe, okay? Now, to sum it up, start with silhouette, find out what general group the bird belongs to, go to that section of your field guide, find the best match you can. Now, birds don't always look just like their pictures. I don't look like my passport picture, thank goodness.
You don't believe
Okay.
it? Get two bird books.
Get 2 bird books, but get the closest match you can find, and remember that birds change their patterns sometime by their age, whether they're males or females too. Then check the range map, read the text, be sure you're in the right habitat and distribution, because the bird may be out of place and it may be rare there, but play the odds. Go with the thing that's most likely. And then read the text to see if the behavior and the voice. And I can't get the voice from reading. I have to listen to it in my ear. Okay, so here's practice, practice, practice. You know, it's the old joke, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Well, how you get to be a good birder too And the best way to practice is to go birding. And if you go birding in a group, it helps, especially if you have people that are better than you and people that aren't as good as you, because you learn from both. If you have a good leader who's willing to teach, here's a group of people at Civil Nature Center. We're all looking at a bird. We're all talking about what we see. We're not calling the names of birds. We're saying, I see a medium-sized bird. It's red. It has a black mask, has a crest. And then we come to the conclusion, okay? Because if we say the name of the bird, we tend to stop looking. And we may be wrong. We try to get everybody on the same bird. If they're in a tree or whatever, we try to find some landmark, and we use the old-fashioned clock. So if I wanted to get you on this bird right here, I would say it's about 2 o'clock. There's a horizontal branch with 3 birds. I want the middle of the 3 birds. And then everybody's looking at the same bird, and we're calling the field marks. We can only do 1 at a time. Can't do more than 1 at a time. Now, this is the part where we get into the conservation that is so important, and that's to record what we see and share it. Now, if you're in a bird group, somebody in that group is going to be recording the birds. Now, if you write them down on a little notebook, you have it. Well, what about the other people in your group? What about the scientists that study birds? They can't see it. So here's what we do now. We take out our little phone and we call up an app called eBird. It's free from Cornell Lab. When we turn that app on, it knows where we are by GPS. It knows the date. It can tell me how far I walk, and it can tell me the time. And all I have to do is put in the species of birds I see and how many I saw. Now, when I hit the submit button on that app, I have it in my list. It keeps a list online. It's a computer thing. And I can share it with everybody in my group by pushing just putting in their account number or their account name. They all have it now. And it goes to Ithaca, New York, to Cornell. And all the scientists that study birds have it. So I am now a community scientist, and I have just contributed data, very important data, of what I saw on the Kirchoff Prairie on May 8th, 2021. And that can be very important for conservation, okay? So it's very important to do this. Now, there are all kinds of information online. Just Google eBird, and you're making your list count for science. And that's so important these days. Birds are declining. We need to help them. So if you want to know how to do this, it's super simple. There's a little tutorial called eBird Essentials. It's free. Go through it. It takes about 15 to 30 minutes with your little app on your phone, and it'll teach you what you need to know. But not only are you putting data in, remember we say you can pull a list off. Where I got the list for Kirchoff Prairie for May, I went into eBird on my computer and I pulled it off by telling it I wanted all the birds from that location in the month of May every year. And I got a list of 42 birds that I'm going to study, okay? So all these links coming up, I can send these to you if you're interested. These apps help you to practice the skills that we've taught you tonight. The Audubon app for your phone, not only does it have a bird guide in it, but it has a little routine there that'll help you ID the birds. It'll ask you the same questions that we taught you tonight. And iNaturalist, you have to have a picture of the bird or a song recording. The one in the middle is the one that's really, really valuable for newcomers to birding. It's called Merlin, like the magician, Merlin the magician. And it's on your phone. It's from Cornell Lab. It's free. You open it up. It knows where you are and what day it is and all that stuff. It asks you a few questions. How big was the bird? It gives you a scale from a little tiny bird up to a goose. It says, how big is your bird? It asks you, what was the bird doing? It gets into behavior. Was it in a tree? Was it on the ground? What was it doing? And what are the 3 main colors of your bird? And 9 times out of 10, it will say, all right, here's a choice of 3 birds, and the bird you saw will be one of them. It's amazing. It is like magic. And all of a sudden now you've learned a new bird, okay? There's tutorials online so that you can learn how to do it. It's really simple. And then once you know the name of the bird, you can put it in eBird. And now you have a new bird on your list. Recently, Cornell, again, put out a new app that's free. Download. It's called BirdNet. To start the app, you hold your phone up to the sound, the bird singing. You record it. You take it makes a little picture of the sound. You say, I want that part of that sound. You say, analyze. 9 times out of 10, if you get a decent recording, guess what? It'll tell you what bird you were listening to. And that helps you tune your ears. That's pretty cool. These people just keep on making it easier for us all to be the community scientists.
That's a video you can do.
Okay, and there's also a video online that shows you exactly step by step how to work this. We just taught a class on birding by ear, and this was just amazing. It's great. Now, here we are on the Kirchoff Prairie, May 8th, 2021. And you want to be a community science. Well, before, you had to be a pretty darn good birder to do this kind of stuff. This is what had happened before. A really good birder went out there and put 12 points in the prairie. She would stand there for 5 minutes at each point. Everything she could identify by ear or by eye, she would write down. She did a magnificent job for many years, but it takes a long time to be that good. What we're going to do on Saturday is something much simpler. It's called incidental birding. Now, Don has divided his property into 4 quadrants. We're going to have a team in each one. And we're going to walk around those quadrants. Each team will be having a bird list going. And when we see a bird or hear a bird, we're going to record it and how many we saw. At the end of that time, we're going to record from 8 to 10. Everybody will put their list in. They will all share them with Don. It'll go into his eBird account. So he'll know what he had on his property. And guess what? Cornell Lab will know what he had on his property that day too.
And each person will know what they saw.
Everybody will know what they saw. And the neat thing is, if you do it in May of 2021 and you do it in May of 2022 and 2025 and 2030, you can see trends. If I'm not seeing certain birds and all of a sudden I am, and I see more diversity, what does that tell me about my stewardship efforts on my land? It's telling me that they're being more successful. But if my bird diversity is going down, that tells me something different. See? So that's why this is so important. And birds are easy to see. They're easier to see than other kinds of bird group, of the animal groups. They're out when we're awake. And they're not so hard to identify if you just practice a little bit. So they're very good bioindicators, as I mentioned before. Now, to continue your work, go take your phone, download Merlin, download eBird. If you want to do the calls, you can download BirdNet, get yourself an online app and get yourself a book. And binoculars on Saturday, people who don't have them, we have some binoculars that Bexar Audubon owns that we can loan. And Tom can go through the thing about how to set them with you. We're going to do that right here in just a minute. And then join Audubon. Go out on our outings. Go out birding with people that are, been doing it for a long time and know how to teach you. Now, the last thing we're going to do tonight is we're going to do a binocular boot camp, and Tom's going to do 5 minutes of how to set binoculars. I'm going to stop my share so you can see him in biggest life and twice as natural right here. Okay.
So this is the shortest boot camp you'll ever experience. Can everybody see my picture clean? Just somebody give me a thumb. Can you see me? Yeah, good. Okay. So binoculars. First thing we do is we put the strap around our neck. I'm not going to do that so I can handle them here. Patsy, can you make that where I can see me?
I don't know.
So I can tell what I'm doing.
Don't know.
Speaker.
Oh, okay, here we go. I'm your own speaker. Okay.
Anyway.
Just do.
Okay, I'm going to do the best I can. So you got them around your neck. Next thing, pretty important, take the lens caps off. Then, do you wear glasses or not? Okay, because binoculars focus at a distance from the glass, of course, because you don't put your eyeball on the glass. So what happens is if you wear glasses, the cups are in this position because your glasses hold them off your face the appropriate distance, off your eyes. If you don't wear glasses, you twist the cups up. In this model, you twist them up.
Can you see it?
See, this one is up, and I'll show you. Up. This one's up for no glasses, down for glasses. If I would do both of them, so they would be both up. Okay? Next thing, binoculars do this. They fold in and out, okay? I need you to move over.
Okay, I can move.
And so what you do is this changes the distance between the two eyepieces. And so what happens is you flare them all the way out, and then you put them up to your face, and you fold them in until you get one clean circle. That tells you both barrels and both eyes are looking at the same thing, okay? Because if you got that thing on the movies, that figure 8 looking thing, I mean, different sides are looking at different stuff. That makes your brain go crazy. So we've got them up set to our eyes, glasses, no glasses. Then the binoculars also have, sorry, I'm tangled up here with this strap. They also have two methods of focus. One is the central focus. That's this big knob in the middle on these, okay? And then that's what most people think of as a focus. Full-size binoculars also typically on the right lens. It could be the left, but typically it's the right. It has a rough knurled ring at the base of it that will focus the right barrel independently of the left barrel. And so this is to fine tune it to our eyes and our glasses and our binocular, okay? I'll go through how we do this in just a moment. How do I hold the binoculars? Best I ever heard was one of our young birders says, I hold them like a big hamburger. Well, that's exactly the right thing. Shove them in your hands, hold your arms down, not flying, down. That's more comfortable, more stable. And then how do I get on a bird? The way you get on something with binoculars is you find it with your naked eye. And then you make your eye like a laser, and you just focus on whatever you want to see. You pick up the binoculars that you've already adjusted, and you pick them up and you make them line up with where you're already looking. None of this looking down and then trying to find it after you've put them to your face. You do that, you're like looking down a BB gun barrel, and I mean, it could drive you nuts. So you find it with your eye, you pick them up, you look, and if it's not there, just drop them down from your eye a bit and find it with your eye again, put them right back up and get it focused. You'll get on it quickly every time, okay? Now, here's the deal about the focus. The only thing left. To get them fine-tuned and set to your face only, this lens, the right barrel, will focus independently of the left. So what I'm going to do is cover that lens, either with the lens cap or just my hand. And then I'm going to find something 15, 20 feet away, and using only the central focus knob, I'm going to focus on that thing and get it just as sharp as I can. Then after I've gotten that really sharp, what you do is you uncover the one you were not using and you cover the one that you just focused. You do not use the central knob. You do not use the central focus, but rather you get that ring at the base of the right one. You look at the same object and you fine tune it until you get it in really sharp focus. Now you don't redo the one on the base on the right anymore. Now these two are set right for you, and now you only need to use the central focus. Okay? So hold them like a hamburger, find it with your eyes, put it on him, and focus it and get it sharp. Okay? That's the end of boot camp.
Okay, you all survived. Okay, now that's the end, except want to put up one more slide and say, now you are ready to go birding with a purpose. You've got the principles, You've got the equipment. You have all kinds of helpers. We'll be there to help people, the people that are coming out. And maybe, and we've talked about this before, Don, I'm sure that we could even set up like a field trip. We were trying to do that before COVID came along, and that kind of got us interrupted. And the people who want to learn how to bird, we could do a teaching session in the prairie, you know? So that's the best way. But if you want to come along, if you are interested in coming out on the 8th, please let Dawn know, because we're making teams. We can't go out in a team of 20 people because we'll run all the birds off, you know. But if you're interested, we do have some slots open, and you can let Dawn know that you'd like to come. We'll have binoculars. We'll be there to help you, and you can go out with one of the teams. And a lot of us are going to stay a little bit later after 10 o'clock after we finish our survey. And we'd be happy to talk to you about any of the things that we talked about tonight. So I'm going to look at the chat. If I can find the darn thing. Here we go. And see. Are you going to match experienced birders with inexperienced birders? Absolutely. Absolutely. You want, although sometimes it's really good to go out by yourself and try to puzzle it out. It really helps to have somebody who can help you. But if all they're doing is telling you the name of the bird, that's probably not the right person.
Like with our young birders, they say, well, what is it? We say, well, what do you see? And they say, well, yeah. And I said, no, what do you see?
Okay. And then we have one that says, I struggle with sparrows when just glancing at them. Well,
yes.
I would say this about sparrows. Start with some of the larger birds, some of the more colorful birds. And then I just love sparrows because they're so subtly beautiful and they're so infuriating sometimes.
You should not start with calculus. You should start with
arithmetic and work up to calculus. But after you get to really looking at them, and we teach a class on that every year in December. For Cibolo Nature Center, you can tune in on Zoom or come on over and we'll teach you up on sparrows, because we do sparrow surveys. And so it just takes a little bit more attention with sparrows. The question is, and this is, do any of you need a packet that was sent out earlier with bird list and maps? If you do, would you please, for the surveyors, if you would let Don know. Don, can you just forward those?
Yes, I can. I have your list. So if anybody asks for them, I can send them directly to them, and I'll let you know they ask for it.
Very good. And if anybody signs up to be on the teams, just send me their names, and so we'll know. I've kind of seen everybody here now. Okay. All right. And somebody says, can I share the binocular sheet as a reference? I will certainly send that out to Don. If you all have Don's email, I'll send it to him. Would you mind if I do that, Don, to get people that sheet? It's a reference sheet.
Yes, that's fine. And I will put my email on this discussion list.
Awesome. Okay, the binocular sheet. Okay. Oh, I love this. Who put this? This is great. Why bird? Because birds are amazing flying reptiles. I have a little son who loves dinosaurs, and he just I'm trying to teach him that birds are just dinosaurs.
I'm infecting.
Yeah, I'm trying to infect him. But any other questions that people want to ask that you just want to unmute yourself and ask? We would be happy to hear your question or your comment. And then we're going to stop. Okay.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. Both of you are outstanding instructors.
Well, come out on the Saturday and you'll see us outstanding in our field. Oh, in Don's field.
Actually, we will be there. I get out to Don's field quite a lot lately.
Very good.
We'll definitely be out there. I've been looking at Manfreda's.
Well, well, start in your own backyard is the thing. And if your own backyard is 200 acres, then you got a little bit more work to do. So any other questions?
Well, as a reminder, Patsy, I think everybody needs to be there by 7:30 Saturday morning. We want to be in the field by 8 o'clock. We'll survey for 2 hours, and then after 10 o'clock, upload this information to eBird, and we will have drinks, snacks, some small sandwiches. And then, of course, after all of that, the property will be open to just explore.
Awesome. It's a beautiful property to explore. And we also will have lots of good bird stories. After you get birders together, they all have a good story to tell about a special
My
bird.
lie's better than your lie.
And my bird was better than yours and all that kind of stuff. So I look forward to meeting each and every one of you in person and helping you take your birding up a little bit and to use it for the future of the prairie and the birds that inhabit the prairie and all the other ecosystems. So thank you so much for indulging us and letting us talk to you tonight. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
I've been made the host, so I think I need to turn it off.